Welcome to Real Paranormal Activity, the network. Entertainment you'll enjoy.
You are listening to an RPA production where people gather. Ladies and gentlemen, RPA is proud to present Aaron's Horror Show with Aaron Frale.
Hi, I'm Orlando Eastwood, director of On the Road, The Search for Bigfoot, and you're listening to Aaron's Horror Show.
You are listening to Aaron's Horror Show, and I'm your host, Aaron Frale. We get to read fiction on the show and talk about some movies, books, you name it. If you like what I do here, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/Aaron Frale. You'll get some books and other cool stuff for your support. Go ahead and also reach out to me at aaronshorrorshow@gmail.com, Aaron Horror Show on Twitter, or Aaron's Horror Show on Facebook. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy.
Welcome to Aaron's Horror Show, and I'm your host, Aaron Frale, and today we have Maddox 3. He's an author off of Royal Road, and he is the author of Torchbearer, a science fantasy lit RPG, and the band Highway to Hellfest, a heavy metal lit RPG. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. I feel like a cheat because I just finished Torchbearer 1, so the first book is now done, and I'm going to do a rewrite, so that means there's not going to be any more band chapters after the next one, and also not any more Torchbearer chapters, so for a month. But yeah.
So if they go on, they're going to have to wait.
Thank you for having me. I mean, there's already like 90 chapters for Torchbearer and like 40 for band, so I think we're cool.
So there's plenty. So by the time they're done reading, they'll be able to get more. Now, I have to ask about the heavy metal one because I happen to be in a heavy metal band. So, that's kind of a, I guess, a passion project of mine. So, so tell me about your heavy metal story.
Well, it's a small story right now, right? So, it's got 50 followers. I don't want to have more. Torchbearer has like way more than band because I always feel as though like, if this gets like a lot of traction right now, then it's going to hit Rising Stars and I have to like deliver on it and it's going to put pressure on me. So I just sneakily released that. I told all my friends to never mention it. But and
here I am, the first thing I ask about.
It's like, cool. I fall into your trap. This is nice. It's a heavy metal lit RPG. It's a story about two main characters primarily. It's Victor, who is a vampire and also a cat boy, and Waverly, who is a werewolf. They're both starting college, and they're just out there having fun, and all the music kind of sucks because ever since the traumatic events in 2006. Metal has been banned in hell, so you can it's very taboo. Like there's still like people who listen to metal sometimes and close all the curtains and it's all quiet and everything, and they use like quieting magic. So the one listen like hear magic because this stuff can get you can make you lose your job. Like if you are a dungeon boss and you get caught listening to heavy metal. You're out.
Would I say it's a cold day in hell that the that metal is banned in hell?
That's the fifth circle. That's cold. So they go there for skiing. It's a very cute story. It's not like torture hell. They outsourced all of that. Now it's all very corporate. And they're running. The most stuff that they're doing is body leasing for NPCs for MMORPGs. So they're all, running dungeons or fighting in dungeons, and they're getting paid out of that. So they generate mana, and then the mana afterwards gets paid out as coin, a part of it. It's mad fun, mostly because Victor is like a very cool, stoic kind of character. A few words, it's like, yo, cool, right? He's the pretty one, the smart one, and Waverly just has like unfiltered ADHD. And I just write whatever I think and just like keep writing without like any comma or whatever. That's not true. I do add commas, and I try to keep down the likes because she likes using the word like. It's like so annoying. But
no, I like that. It's funny because I call the character that says whatever they're thinking the Meat Hook character. The only reason why I call him the Meat Hook character is because I wrote a character called Meat Hook that was basically like that. Mm-hmm. And I always enjoy the Meat Hook characters of the world, the ones that are it's almost the comic relief. And it sounds like with both your characters, it's sort of the classic comedy duo where you have a straight man, the person who's playing everything very seriously, and then the comic character who kind of adds the sort of levity to the situation.
A little bit. I mean, Waverly has her own issues. It's very important to me that my characters aren't characters but people, if that makes sense. I had this one guy teach me how to write characters, and like he just hammered all this stuff into my brain, and I'm really grateful for it. His name is David Corbett, and he's got a book out. The book's called Art of Character. Love that book. It's a bit, I won't like, it's very purple prosy because it's been written for the artsy kind of people.
Right.
But if you're reading it, you can still. I think it's a very good book about characters because it talks about characters and exploring characters from psychological events. And Waverly is very much still a person. She has issues with her family, like everyone else. She's the oldest daughter of 26, and because they're wolves, they're Thorlitters, right? So it makes sense. And she's taking care of all the family stuff because her mom and her dad are both working. They're both very blue collar. They're elite monsters in a mid-level dungeon, and it doesn't really pay all that well. So she's stuck out there taking care of all the kids, all of her siblings. And that like puts a lot of stress on her because she also wants to excel at college. She's very good at college, but all this time constraints really pressure down on her. So she's not a comic relief character in that sense, but she is very ditzy and very cute. Right. And the dynamic between Victor and Waverly is very comical at some point. At some parts.
Right. Yeah. And I would say just because a character is comical doesn't mean they don't have to have like, feelings and wants and desires and, all the stuff that all the inner workings of a character. Right.
Yeah.
Like I would say that especially when you think about how like comedy functions, it's kind of like a layer in the layers that you're already making. Mm-hmm. So you have, it sounds like you have a very layered story, which, I think having layers is great,
I think layered is the word that's been like the adjective that's been most used for my books. The other one's horrible. No, I'm just kidding. But there's two kinds of people who review my story on Royal Road. The one kind writes, "Hey, I don't get it. This is a very confusing stories," and the other half of Royal Road says, "Oh, this is amazing. This is very layered, very deep characters. You got to pay attention. You got to find out all this stuff." And I write for those people. I love Royal Road. I love my quick payoff dopamine hit book. I love those.
Right.
But it's something I can't write. I've tried to write very fluffy, easy stuff. But I always get caught up in, hey, who are these people? What do they really want? Like, why are they who they are? And Band is as close as I can get to a quick, fun, these people are just going to have fun kind of story. Torchbearer is very different.
Right. And actually, let's talk about Torchbearer. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and tell us about Torchbearer.
You're welcome for the segue.
Yes. No.
Well, Torchbearer, I started that book. How long do you have?
Honestly, we could always break the episode up into several episodes. Things.
Yeah.
Right.
So Torchbearer is... I started the idea of Torchbearer in college in 2011. I was young, I was stupid, I wasn't paying attention. I had wonderful teachers that I didn't learn anything from because I was young and stupid. But they tried to teach me all the best stuff, and they gave me really good writing prompts. So I just kind of threw stuff on the page and thought I was the hottest shit on earth. I wasn't. But one of the prompts was that I made up for myself was what happens if God made a mistake. So so it's this global pandemic, everyone dies, and then God's like, oh no, this wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry, Earth 2563. Sorry, we mixed something up. Here you all get a free wish. And then people just wish for stuff. And it was a comedy story about everyone wishes for wealth and fortune. And there's this guy called John Miller, who's like the most famous person on the planet, but he doesn't do anything. And there's this bunch of ragtag people who wished for something completely useless. So like, I can turn into birds, or I know all the secrets about plumbing, or like this kind of stuff. And they just they all get like exiled to this like island, and they just do their own shit over there. It had no tension. There was nothing going on. It was just this main character being a main character. It was not a good story at all. But the prompt I took, and I thought, hey, this is like a really good idea. And that kind of shifted. And then later on, that became a story about a plane, right? So it wasn't everyone on Earth. It was just like these people on a plane. And there was a stork and a windshield. Stuff happened. Plane died. Plane crashed because the pilot was supposed to die yesterday, but they missed the mark. I love the punctuation.
Right.
And so they missed the mark. The plane crash lands in the ocean. Everyone dies. And well, they crash land in the ocean. That's a sentence. So they crashed into the ocean. And well, because they weren't supposed to die, there's like contracts. So the angels have to bring them all back, and they bring them all back, but they're smart. Because the last time they gave out free wishes, they had like cults popping up everywhere and like weird new religions, and I didn't really want all of that stuff. This is how Scientology started. So let's not. And then they decided, okay, cool. What we're going to do is we're going to all give them a wish, but we're going to put them in a life-threatening situation right after like respawning them. So they will immediately die again, and we don't have a problem. But the issue is, if you put people into life-threatening situations and give them a free wish, they wish not to die. For people who just wish not to die, it's fine. They get mind zapped and cool, whatever. But for people who wish for something more, they have to find solutions. And my main character, Samantha, wishes to advance technology. That's her thing. She wants to advance technology. And the angels go, well, that's okay. We can do that, but not on this Earth. Like this time loop continuum, we can mess with this. We're going to give you your own planet. Enjoy. And she's like, what? And so she gets isekai'd to this planet. There's people on there. It's very Middle Ages. And there is these mage lords that run everything. And I think I'm spoiling like half of the book already. But don't worry about spoilers. I always on my show spoil just about everything. So my audience is very used to spoilers, but they still go out and like take a look at the stuff anyways. So this is the clever kind of spoiler because none of that matters for the story in the start.
Oh, good.
It's we're talking about layers, right? So
right, exactly. No, exactly.
She goes out and she does the isekai thing. She becomes a great hero. She gets all her friends. She uses her power for the greater good, and sometimes maybe also evil. It's quite uncertain. Some people call her the Torchbearer and the Saint Samantha, and other people call her the Divine Tyrant, and it's really shades of gray. I haven't written that story. That story doesn't exist. I'm making all the shit up as I go. This doesn't exist at all. Like people always like
not. The Torchbearer on Royal Road.
That is the Torchbearer. The Torchbearer on Royal Road is not what I just said. No.
Oh, okay. So you're right. That is a clever spoiler.
Yeah. The book starts when she goes to war against the Mage Lords, and she makes a mistake, a very costly mistake. And she retreats, and in the very beginning of Torchbearer, she's stuck in a bunker, and well, in the new version she isn't, but I'm rewriting. But she's stuck in a bunker, and she's got a cable stuck in her back, and she's pushed technology to the farthest point it can go in her bunker. And her partner Chris helps her to kind of upload her consciousness into the internet that doesn't exist yet, but to like digitalize her consciousness to kind of create a Uber war AI that will win the war for them. But something goes wrong, everything goes black, and when she opens her eyes again, she's in this weird desert world that shouldn't really exist. And it turns out, oh shit, she's gotten stuck in her laptop. And that's where the book starts. There's evil viruses. There's machines that are, coming to hunt for her. There's some people who want to enslave her, even though maybe they know who she is. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe they don't. There's a lot of questions at the beginning of Torchbearer, and it's one of those stories that unfolds as you read it. And most of the fun, I think, is to follow along and kind of understand, hey, what's going on here and who was this person before, putting all the puzzle pieces together. I love books, I love games like The Secret World or Control, because they don't give you all the answers. They just give you a lot of questions at the beginning, and you have to put all the shit together yourself. Elden Ring does that too, but in a different way. So, yeah.
Right. So what's probably the hardest thing about constructing the book for you? Because I know you said you're rewriting the beginning. So if you're building a puzzle that ultimately the reader is going to have to put together by the end, it seems like a challenge to go through and rewrite things,
It is. Like, it's a gigantic Jenga tower. But so the way I wrote it is I don't know the answers to all these questions. Whenever I throw up a question, I put up a document and I write down all the possible answers that could come to my mind. And then I cross them out one after the other when I introduce more information. And I try to introduce information that crosses out the stupid ones, but leave as many open as possible without being aggravating. So I just go through the entire story and I write it as the reader would read it, right? So like, oh, wow, could this have been possible? Well, maybe. And then I just hint at something being possible. And the further we go on, the more questions I throw out, yes, but also the more answers I give. So you will also kind of, do this stuff. This is probably the worst way of doing this. I wish I could plot, but I can't. So I know where I want to go with the story. Whether that is like 10 books or 3, I have no idea, because I have a lot of ideas that I want to put in there. Right. But I wrote to the end, and I wrote very spur of the moment, just like put out whatever I felt right now on the page. That was a problem, because in some chapters I contradict myself, and in some chapters there's nothing going on because I didn't trust myself to kind of push a story along, and I just milked an action scene for 35,000 words.
Wow. I don't think I've ever had an action scene that long.
That's the infamous log 3.16. It's not that bad. Like, I always think it's worse than it is, but it's definitely something I'm going to fix. So right now I got the printout here.
Yeah. Oh wow.
This is 4 pages per page, and I have a lot of stuff in there, and it's about 600 pages of 4 pages. No, wait, actually, it's 600 pages printed out. Yeah, so I have to go through the entire thing and kind of like delete stuff, but I have 20 chapters that I want to rewrite. So yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, no, that's I think the challenge of authors is going through and finding the perfect combination, especially when the more layers you add, the more complicated the storyline is. Mm-hmm. There's definitely going to be more work involved as far as, plotting it out. And honestly, like, I've written a fair amount of stuff at this point, mm-hmm. but like there is I wasn't always like where I am now. Like the stuff that I write now is like leaps and bounds to the stuff when I first started writing. Like I first started when I was maybe, I don't know, like in elementary school. And the first thing I wrote was on a piece of paper, and it was basically the movie Aliens and the movie Terminator.
Nice.
My two favorite movies when I was a kid. So it was an alien robot or whatever. I forgot exactly what it was, but it's like so I don't know. I feel like don't beat yourself up for anything you might have done in the past, because it's all about the future. Like the book that you ultimately produce, I think is going to be amazing, right? Because you're gonna have done all that work to get it to that point.
I'm actually very thoroughly enjoying rewriting the book. I'm not going through there like sentence by sentence. I am writing it as though I knew what I was doing from the start, which I think it's a Neil Gaiman quote. He says, "Foreshadowing is what happens when you finish a book and then go back to make it look as though you knew what you were doing." It's
a really good quote, actually.
It's a really good quote. I love these quotes. He's very right, I think. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like foreshadowing is definitely the once you figured something out, throwing something in the beginning to nod to that. It was always part of the story.
Yeah. I mean, for band, I tried to not do that. So I tried to actually, stick with a very, very simple structure, just two people having fun at college. But now that I'm writing it, I'm like, I might actually have to go back and edit a few scenes, just a few. And people on my friends group treat me like an addict. It's like, no, Maddox, stop! Like, this is intervention. You just need to edit.
Honestly, I guess I'm the enabler in this situation. I have to say what you're doing is ultimately. For the best. It's a challenge when you think about writing on Royal Road, because you're publishing stuff that you might go back and redo and are going back and redoing. So kind of talk, what do you, how is that writing on Royal Road, where you don't have a finished product right away, so you go back and sort of redo things,
Well, in one sense, it's very stressful because you have to push out something. On the other, it always depends on how you do it. And if you're an alien, on the third hand, it kind of, how do I say this? So Royal Road is very forgiving when it comes to issues, which is good and bad, because they are all used to reading first drafts. That's what everyone gets. Right?
Yeah.
The best authors give you the third draft because they have a beta reader group that looks over it, then a Patreon group that looks over it, and then they give it to Royal Road. So it's like 3 layers of edits. Other people, now we're going to approaching part. So Benjamin Correa, for example, I know doesn't put his book out until it's done. Raven's Dagger does the same thing. But Raven's Dagger is also insane and writes six books at once. So talking to all these authors, I found that there's no like single solution. And so for me, writing on Royal Road, at the beginning was very stressful, because some of the comments really get to you. You were earlier saying, characters who live and breathe. Like, I wanted to joke, like, unlike authors, because we all know they have no feelings, but that's not true. So that being said, I love my readers right now. So I have maybe 8 people who comment on every chapter like religiously, and I love them to pieces. Like, some of them are just write like, "Thank you for the chapter," and I'm having fun like coming up with new ways to replying for "Thank you for the chapter." Others are way more in depth. They do analysis. They do exactly the stuff that I would love, right, to do. It's like, oh, is this going to happen? Oh, this seems cool, and that's a cool idea. And I'm having fun teasing them a little bit and giving some more information, some more background information about that. So for me, writing on Royal Road is actually pretty cool. I would always try to, if I had a working Patreon, I decided against having a Patreon. I had one and it didn't really take off and wasn't worth the hassle. So if I had a Patreon, what I would do is I would put it all up there first. and then release it chapter by chapter, one chapter every 3 chapters a week or whatever on Royal Road, and just have it automated. Because I really enjoyed having finished Torchbearer and then like the second edition of Torchbearer. This is the second edition already. Having finished that and putting it out, it allowed me to write Band, for example. But at the same time, I was thinking the other day that if I hadn't fucked around with Band, and if I hadn't fucked around with Torchbearer all that much, I would have written 3 books by now. Like 3 books of Torchbearer, I could have put into a publisher and then just, gotten money out of it. So I'll see what I'll do in the future. I think the last sentence for that is my ideal solution would be I write as fast as I can, and I have a growing backlog. Right. And then kind of put all the access on Patreon, see if people like it. And if not, that's also okay. And I will have a finished book at some point and then go back to edit while the Patreon people wait and the Royal people catch up, I guess. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Every writer seems to have their own journey about how they. I mean, I think about it. There are writers out there who maybe have only written 1 or 2 books their entire lifetime, but they spend that time making them perfect, And then there are others that, I wrote 16 books last April, like
like old folks. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's different, I don't know, there's people on different journeys, and so I don't think necessarily one way is more the better way than the other, because I don't know, I have to think, who was it? It was the Pachenko is in the title of the book. I forget.
I was thinking Harper Lee. Catcher in the Rye.
No, not Catcher in the Rye. I mean, that is a good example of one of those authors, but it was a more recent one. It was about like Korean immigrants in Japan, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And Pachenko is in the title of the book.
I have no idea. I can look it up, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I heard an interview with her. Her book's very successful and has its own Netflix series, and probably about as successful as what an author can get. And I remember hearing her talk about writing that book, and it took her like maybe 8 years or 10 years to write it, from when she had the idea to when she finally published it. And she said that, like, for her, it was just making it perfect. That's what was the big important thing. And obviously she did well with that.
That being said, I think that strategy has a very high failure rate, because many people overshoot perfect and just mush their own thing into like mush. Right. I'm not in Patrick Rothfuss's circle of friends. I'm not in his head, but I know for a fact that guy is overthinking a lot, because the first book was great. The second book was okay. As in, like, in plot, like the prose was stellar, and the prose put all of it to shame. I'm a prosaic writer. I love prose, which is why I love everything Patrick Rothfuss writes. But at some point, the book is perfect, but the demons in your head are telling you it's not. And it's not about the thing itself anymore. It's fighting against yourself to actually admit that the weaknesses are strengths, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, it does. It does make sense. I mean, there's a certain point where you got to say, this is good enough to share with the world, with people, Like, I don't know. I've, gotten this writing sort of process down, for me at least, on how I work. And I, even in the stuff that at the end, I'm like, yeah, this is great. I think it's ready. I'll go back later on and
Doesn't it depend on the day?
Yeah, I should have done that, but I at that point I go, well, it's already published, it's already on there, But yeah, you're right. It is actually depends on the day. So
if I'm going to put my podcaster head on, I would love to ask you, like, what's your process on this? What's your process then for the writing?
Oh, for me, yeah. So I do essentially. I limit myself to about 3 rewrites for really, if I get down to it. So that the limit is 4. So after 4, it's done. It doesn't matter if it's done or not, it's done. But so there's the first draft, and that is always awful because the first drafts are never good. So I just lean into that, and I force myself to write about 1,000 words a day until it's done. Sometimes I write a little bit more, but the benchmark of me feeling successful or not is based on that 1,000 words. And so after that 1,000 words a day is done, I inevitably go back for a very heavy rewrite. And that's where usually that first 30% is completely rewritten. Almost everything is rewritten. The Neil Gaiman quote of foreshadowing is like that's where all the foreshadowing happens after the first draft is done.
Because you have no idea where the story is going to go in the first 30%. Like, it's just like, well, I guess this works. But
right.
So
So I just get through it just by writing,
Exactly. I mean, I think I talked about this with some people. Pantsing is nothing but very, very extensive plotting, right? With a lot of stuff that you have to throw out later on anyway. Plotting is better in that way because you throw out all the stuff at the beginning before you have to write it. But also, I think there's one plotter who writes amazing characters and has a very tight plot, and that's Travis Baldree. But Travis Baldree is Travis Baldree. He I don't know. I don't think he breathes air. I think he breathes like gold. Like, this guy, he was amazing on the podcast. Loved this guy. He really helped me out a lot. And yet I stand in awe. He had 3 careers and excels in all of them. Like, how?
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, totally. Sorry.
No. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's funny that plotting. I don't know. Writing an outline. Do you write outlines for your plots? I
have a rolling outline. It's a thing that I've discovered that I really love. I don't know how I came up with it. It's basically, so I write, and then I go like, damn it, I need to know where I'm going. So I write in all caps, Sam needs to talk to Zephyro that she doesn't want to fight. I need to establish that the logic exists. I need to make sure that she has some flashbacks, because those are important later. And I need to make sure that there's a bit of conflict and that she has to fight and can show she's capable. Right? So
it's in the middle of the prose then. So you have you're writing and then you put those all caps in.
I put them at the end.
I do the same thing. I do programmers comments. So I know C++ or knew C++ back in the day. Haven't really used it much, but in C++ they do a / 2 stars, and then the end of the comment is 2 stars and another /. So what I do is I put that in and then write a note to myself, and then go. It really helps when you're rewriting because I just do a search for the / **, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I need to do here.
I all my stuff is prose finished because I do put all my stuff in Railroad immediately, right?
Right.
So that's that. The prose is finished. The chapter looks good, but I use Scrivener, and so Scrivener has this function where you can say split at selection, and then it creates a new chapter or new scene or whatever file underneath the current one with the same title, just -1, and then everything under the cursor gets copied to the next one. And so what I do is I have all these reminders down there, and this might actually get up to 3 pages long, and I cross them out as I go. So this is literally just a plot. But if I don't do that, if this thing becomes too short, I find myself writing really, really stupid stuff, like characters getting into fights just because. So yeah. I think your solution is very good too. If you don't put it to Railroad immediately, right?
Yeah, no, I don't. It's funny. I guess I started writing uh, before Royal Road existed, at least as far as I know.
2000,
and so
2013 or something.
2000. Oh no, I must have been right at the same time then, because the first thing that I published was 2013.
Oh.
So the first book I wrote was in 2013. So I could have hit Royal Road right in the beginning if I.
It back then it was a Legend of the Moonlight Sculptor fan site. So there was
really?
It was just a fan forum, and people started posting stories on there. And then Wing and Kana just kind of like reprogrammed something into like this open mic website thing, and it was very, very, very cruddy at the beginning. And I have no idea how Kana did it, but he fixed it all with some duct tape. So
wow. No, I didn't know that. It's funny. Yeah, I kind of, I don't know. I started writing before micro. I don't want to call it micro blogging or micro fiction, because it's not really that, but it's like before the idea of like publishing stuff, on publishing stuff before, chapter by chapter was a big thing, right?
Web serials.
And so I had already sort of started the journey of trying to sell books on Amazon,
which is great. I mean, did you ever like get an agent or anything like that?
So I had a brush with a major publishing company that sort of colored my future endeavors. So I had a book that I had submitted to one of the major publishing companies. I'm not going to go ahead and say which one for the thing that I'm not really bitter about it at all, but it did definitely change what I decided to do with my writing. So I had a book that I was, with a major publishing company. It wasn't with them. They hadn't bought it. They had sent me an email to say they were considering it, that it was on the, they need to look further into the book and read it more to make a decision on it. So it wasn't a rejection, but it also wasn't acceptance.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, cool. I might get published by a major publishing company. This is rad. And so I kindly thanked the editor and said, and I kept writing because I love writing. So it was more about the fun of doing it for me. And this particular company, their policy was you could only have one book in consideration with them at a time.
Oh, okay.
So you can't submit multiple books to them. And so I had other books that I had written, and I meanwhile hear like Hugh Howey, I don't know if you've read Hugh Howey. He wrote Wool, and Wool. So Hugh Howey was a self-published author that wrote Wool, and I loved that story back when it was self-published. So I was one of the, early adopters of Hugh Howey. And anyways, I read Wool. I thought it was a great story. And then he picks up by a big publishing company. Now he has a TV series on Apple TV. It's the Silo series on Apple TV. And like Hugh Howey was the self-published author that kind of made it. And he's also very nice. Like I've had interactions with him before in sort of writing forums and stuff like that. And, for being really sort of, famous, I guess, at this point, the fact that he maintains that very nice guy thing, I really like that. I appreciate that he's, still nice to all the little people that were interacting with him before he, got his own TV show.
I found that most authors are. I don't think authors have the same issue, or like at large, have the same issues as actors do. I mean, I know many actors who are like lovely people, but there's something about having the confidence of saying like, yes, people need to look at my face every day. That kind of, I think, makes you take success in a different way. But that is a positive thing I want to say actually about authors. Every single author I had, either on the pod or just interactions with, they're all super nice people. Maybe they don't have time for you, but they're all super nice. And I'm quite sure that you could, poke Neil Gaiman and ask him like, hey, do you want to come to the pod? And he would at least write you a very nice rejection letter. If not, just say like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, why not?
Right.
Like,
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, no. Yeah, no, and that's what I like about the author community is that there's very little, because I have, been in just the theater and film community back where I'm from, and I've seen it happen both ways, where people get some moniker of success and then they start being awful, and then I've seen people who get a moniker of success and they're still very nice about it. So, but so anyways, the big publisher story, I realized I should probably finish the story, or else the audience is going to be like, what happened, Aaron? Because I don't think I've ever said this story on my podcast before. But anyways, so I started writing books and I started publishing them online because I was just waiting for a response for this publisher, and I started selling books. So I'm like, wow, I'm actually making money from my writing. And, it's like, I'm sure you feel this with Royal Road, where even if it's a small amount of folks, like I had probably 1 or 2 sales in the beginning, but even that small amount was enough to give you that like dopamine hit of like, oh man, I got to do this again. This is cool. And so meanwhile, I was sending like, letters to the editor going, it's very nice and polite and like, hey, have you gotten to take a look at my book yet? Or have you, have you had a chance to take a look at it? And I did that every 3 months for about 2.5 years. And then finally 2.5 years, they sent me the rejection letter. I mean, it wasn't like a bad rejection letter. It was, and it was personal because I had already built a personal relationship with the editor. So they were very nice about it. They were like, hey, sorry, the story's not for us. We went ahead and take a look, and, good luck with your writing career, but, we're deciding not to publish it. And I was like, and in that 2.5 years, I had already published, I think, like 3 books or something like that on Amazon and written 3 books. And I was just like, why do I even need them? Like I don't need a big publisher to do this. I can do it on my own. So I don't know. I don't know. Have you felt that there's a certain freedom in writing on Royal Road of being able to do it on your own, or are you,
I need to be super careful with all this kind of stuff because I do take stuff personally if I invest too much into it. So I need to be very, very careful about why do I write. And I do think that's a skill that every writer should have. And for me right now, I write to have fun. I don't care how many people read it. This is why I love Band. I have 3 people read it, and that's awesome. Like, okay, it's 50, and a lot of people actually like it a lot. But it's okay. I don't need more. People, like, there was this one guy on Authors Guild Discord, and I said, like, hey, I have 200 followers now. And he's like, 200 followers? My brother in Christ, write something else. And I said, I said, that's a bit disrespectful.
That is. That's
I said, like,
really
hey, look,
disrespectful.
I didn't ask you for your advice. And what makes you say that? And he said, well, I want you to be successful. I'm like, that's cool. I am successful because my measure of success was more than 10 people read the story. And then it was 50. And then it was 100. And now that I'm at 200, I'm good. Right? My next goal is I want to hit top 10 rising stars. I did that with Torchbearer. I hit number 7, I think.
Nice.
With a female main character, mystery, thriller, science fiction thing that is so far off meta that, I don't know, you can't see with a telescope. I am very, very happy about this. Like, I'm super happy about it. The next challenge will be to publish and not take it personal if I get rejections. Because, I mean, I've interviewed some publishers, and they're all super busy. And if they're looking at Torchbearer, they can be like, oh, this is a great book, but we can't publish this because it's not what our fan base wants to read right now, and we would much rather not take that bet. And I agree, that's okay, right? But I have to measure, like, finding out your own measure of success and sticking with that is hard once numbers become involved, because everyone loves numbers going up. So
Yeah, no, I know how you feel about that because everyone does love numbers going up. I'm guilty of the same thing, of
Lit RPGs. Yeah, there you go.
right. Right. Oh, that's funny. Layered. That's layered right there,
Yeah.
right? Lit RPG and
I mean,
writing.
that's the joke, right? In the lit RPG
Right.
writers community. I don't know because your podcast has more exposure to this. Sorry, you might need to edit this out.
No, it's funny. We probably won't.
No, my stumbles.
It's okay. I stumble all the time in my show. There are times where I like lose my attention of what I'm like talking about, and I go
all the time. See, the thing earlier with your story being finished, when I'm writing, I have that problem where I begin a paragraph and I get so lost in the prose that I forget what's about, and it starts at A and it ends at D, and you're like, what? And you sort of rewrite the entire thing. Or one chapter just like starts off in like a flowery field, and in the end everything is bloodshed, and there's no indication whatsoever. Yeah, that's a laugh of recognition. I can see that.
Yeah, no, it is. I gotta introduce you. I have a friend. His name is Philip Carter. I gotta introduce you to him because I think you two would get along because you're cut from the same cloth. Like he writes, as he says it, fiction that either confuses people or people love. And yeah, and I've read some of his stuff, and yeah, I love it because he really is. He has his own cloth, and his own box, and it's his own box that he goes outside of. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's not even like anyone else's box out there.
It's kind of who did I talk to about this? Like someone I talked to about this is like, at some point you have to decide what you're doing this for. If you're just doing this for funsies, you can write whatever you want. But if you want to make money, you have to submit to the tyranny of the masses at some point. I'm joking about this, of course.
Yeah.
Right, because I think Torchbearer is a good book if you happen to like that kind of thing. It might not be the best Royal Road book, but I think it might have success on KU. I'll be crushed if it doesn't, so I'll have to be careful about that. But
well, if you need some marketing, like KU marketing, that's what I've spent almost the last 10 years trying to perfect. Hopefully, so I'm happy to help you out with that. Like you
need to add me on Discord. I had this interview with the wife of Michael Sullivan, if you know him, Michael J. Sullivan, Theft of Swords, Eria Chronicles. And she was his manager, or has been his manager for the last 20 years, and she was just this powerhouse of advice, like so much that it actually all didn't fit into my head. So I really appreciate you saying this, so I can come back to you and ask you about it. Because my stuff might not be super Royal Road compatible. And I know how to advertise on Royal Road. I don't know how to advertise anywhere else. So thank you.
Well, good, because I might have to come to you with Royal Road questions if I
don't worry about it.
Ever pull the trigger on doing Royal Road. I tried doing Kindle Vella when that came out because Kindle.
I'm sorry.
I know, but they bribed me. I mean, it was kind of nice. They were paying us sort of first round authors for our stories just to publish them. So I was getting like a paycheck from Amazon just to put stuff on there. Not that anyone was reading it, but I at least got paid for it. So it wasn't that bad. And the lit RPG that I have out now is actually the what I started off on Vella. So it was a new experience for me because even the Vella, like, I was just like, I can't believe I published that. It's totally not the same story anymore. What was I even thinking? Because I don't know, I come from that, I guess, older school where I don't show anyone it until it's done, like literally, I think the only people that read it is my editor before I'm ready to publish.
Yeah. I actually started writing on Royal Road because I wanted to stop overthinking it.
Oh,
My
wow.
initial idea with Torchbearer was
Yeah.
put it out there, just pull the trigger every time. Just write it, put it out there. Write it, put it out there. That was terrible. But it got me into the habit of just, having just writing and not really caring, like not letting my inner critic run the show. So these days I'm still in an arm wrestling match with that inner critic, but I have this other story, also related to the plane crash story I told you before. It's like this whole metaverse that I've built. And that's called The Flower, the Wish, and the Blood. And it's a urban fantasy set in Berlin about a young vampire who has to restore her house to glory to free her father from prison. And that book I wrote 4 times and didn't publish. And at the 4th time, I just kind of stopped in the middle because it still wasn't coming together because I was second guessing everything. I'm looking forward to returning to that at some point, even though it probably won't earn any money because it's an urban fantasy story that has gigantic market and it's very hard to poke out of that. But I like it. So I like it. I'm going to write it. And maybe I'll do it beside my job.
You should. You like it, you write it. I mean, honestly, I think enjoying the writing aspect is super important because I don't know the numbers and the, trying to turn it into a day job. I think that's where some people get crushed by the experience, and I think it's good to keep the sight on the.
And people who do get crushed in this thing have I think two issues. Either they didn't love writing before, or they let the pursuit of perfection crush, the inner critic crush their joy of writing. And you need to be very careful about that. Mental health is very important. And if you don't actually want to write, fucking don't. Pardon me, I'm swearing a lot. I'm European. I think I got one swear per show or something. But then sorry, I threw for a loop. So if you don't want to write, you earn more money at McDonald's than you do writing in 65% of all the cases. Of all professional authors who put in 8 hours a day, you most likely make more money working at McDonald's than
it's true, actually.
Right? So John Beers gave me this advice, and I will gladly share with everyone. Do not quit your day job unless it is losing you money. Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. And the other thing, be very careful. Consider what you're writing and if it's the right niche. Right? So I know there's a crap ton of money to be made in erotica, for example. Right? Mm-hmm. But do you want to write erotica? Do you want to write smut every day? I have several friends who said they really don't, and it crushed them. So then don't do that. Do something else. Writing is more than just sitting down and putting down words. You are your own best and most important employee, and you have to take care of yourself. You have to self-manage.
Yeah, that is great advice. And actually that's great advice for I guess the end of the podcast, because I think we got to leave on that note. But before we go, I want everyone to start reading Torchbearer and the Heavy Metal Store personally. But I want people to find your work and start reading. So how do they find you? Where do they go? For those who've never done Royal Road before.
Well, I think you can find most of my stuff under my link tree. So that is linktr, one word, .ee/Maddox and then the number 3. So that is linktr.ee/MADIX3. There's no dash in that, which confuses me a lot.
I will be putting that in the show notes so people can go ahead and find you on Linktree and
if you enjoy either story, please do feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. If you want to rate it, awesome. Please do be aware of one thing on Royal Road. Royal Road, the average story that is good, not perfect, just good, has 4.5 stars. That means if you rate a story anything lower than 4.5 stars, it is not a good story. You might think 4 stars is good, but in rating inflation happens so vastly quickly that you have to be very careful with your ratings. So usually you can consider this the following way. 5 stars is thumbs up. 4.5 is, this was an okay story. 4 point is like, this story wasn't really for me. And then anything below 4 stars is, I want you to suffer a lot. So I'm going to like ruin your rating.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I got to start saying that to my readers because I'm like, rate how you feel. I don't want to tell you how to rate my book. So
no, you can't tell people what to rate. I will never tell anyone how to rate it. Right? It's perfectly your own decision, but you have to explain how rating inflation works. The other question I would always ask my readers is like, how many 3.5 star ratings have you read in the last year? Right? So yeah, so I think a friend of mine had a very good point. He said, your average rating should be the average story you read. There you go.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh my God. You've given me great advice for how to tell people how to rate. Because I'm
super
I always,
about this,
that's really good advice. I always felt because I hear this on other podcasts where people are like, please go ahead and rate me on Apple Podcasts or something and leave a 5-star review or something. And I always really like, I always feel so uncomfortable when people say that, but I understand why people are doing that now. It makes more sense, if below 4.5 is suffering.
Yeah, I mean, so again, right? So not just because I would never presume anyone tell you how to express their own stuff, but it's important to understand that the people who do want to act in good faith understand what they're doing, right? And also on top of this, telling people how to rate is rating manipulation, and it's bannable offense on Railroad. So don't do that, right? So don't tell people rate me 5 stars. Tell them like, hey, rate how you feel, but this is how it works. Right, so this is how public perception works. You can do that, and this is not a loophole. I think this is perfectly fine in a 5-star rating system. Okay,
cool, interesting. All right, well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We appreciate you being here. Go ahead and hang on the line.